Hello and welcome to the latest webinar from Essent. Today we'll be discussing product safety information management and how to leverage technology so that product sales are safer. Thank you for joining us. My name is Doug Brill. I'm the Essent Marketing Coordinator and I specialize in the promotional products industry. I'm also your moderator today. Before we begin, a very brief overview of Essent. Essent is a leader in providing comprehensive business management solutions since 1981. Essent has been serving distributors, decorators, and suppliers in the promotional products industry since the year 2000, and more than $3 billion in commerce flows through Essent solutions each year. We expect that you may have some questions, but in an effort to keep the webinar concise for everyone, we can only answer those questions offline. So feel free to use the webinar control panel to submit questions, and we'll be happy to answer them for you after the webinar has ended. Let's take a quick overview of product safety. Product safety regulations and age determination guidelines are important to consider when selling products to your customers. Products being sold have to meet certain product safety regulations by law. You should not only consider product safety regulations, but also ensure that products being sold are age approved for the end customer. Distributors especially have an obligation to determine the product's intended audience and share this information with the importer, decorator, manufacturer, etc. It's also important to note that those importers, decorators, and manufacturers working with the distributors also need to be compliant in regards to product safety, so they're also going to need a way to track product safety information. When talking about product safety and product safety compliance, the Consumer Product Safety Commission says that compliance is important, first of all, to protect the safety of American consumers. Also, it's important to protect your company, your brand, and your customers, and also because simply it's the law. Failure to follow these laws put companies and their customers at risk. According to the Commission, a supplier or distributor of promotional products must understand and comply with important federal consumer product safety laws. The bottom line is that a company could face potentially catastrophic fines if they don't comply, not to mention potential lawsuits. It's not enough to say just that a product is compliant. Companies need something to help track product safety information, and they need to be able to do it and track that information for every product they sell. And with that, here to take you into greater detail is your presenter, Will Austin. Will is a business analyst for Essent, and he'll tell you more about leveraging technology for improved product safety information management.
Thank you, Doug. So again, today our topic is product safety management, and this webinar is going to show you the tools that will greatly enhance product safety information management so that your product sales are safer. All right, so let's take a look at a product. Here's a mug, and you have a customer that wants to buy those mugs, and maybe you're not sure if those mugs are compliant with product safety regulations. So you inspect the mug, and it's good. And you even follow up with the supplier and they tell you that the mug is certified, and they can even provide you documentation that states that the mug is certified. That's great. The product is certified. It's compliant. But now if we take that same mug and add decoration to it, you have a responsibility to make sure that any decorations on a product are also compliant with product safety regulations. Now, you're not only considering the product safety regulations associated with the product, but you also need to consider the decoration on your products. So maybe in this case, you've had the product decorated before, which is great, but maybe the ink that was used was part of a different lot than last time, so that's definitely something to consider. But the long and short of it is, you make sure that that decoration is compliant You call the supplier, you confirm the decoration is certified, it's compliant, great. We've talked about products and decorations, but here's the kicker. Children's products. The Consumer Product Safety Commission article called Buying Promotional Products, A Guide to Federal Safety Laws, goes on to state that a children's product is any item that's designed or intended primarily for children 12 years of age or younger. And those children's products have important safety regulations covering certain substances, and depending on the intended age of the consumer, a children's product may also have to comply with some additional regulations addressing hazards like lead paint, small parts, flammability of clothing, textiles, flammability of vinyl plastic, even flammability of children's sleepwear. So if you're promoting or decorating your products in a manner which they appear to be designed or intended primarily for children 12 years of age or younger, that decorated product now will be classified as a children's product. So let's suppose you have an undecorated item like a piece of drinkware, like the mug in this case, so the mug that you see on the screen, and the decoration is designed or intended primarily to appeal to a child 12 years of age or younger. That decoration transforms the product from a non-children's product into a children's product. So now you have this decorated mug that's considered a children's product that might not be compliant or maybe non-compliant. So even though a change in artwork on the product may appear to a distributor to be a small change, that change could have important implications for the consumer's safety and for the company's compliance with federal laws. It's always important to consider the safety of a product as well as the decoration of a product, because it can reclassify that decorated item into what is considered a children's product. So you want to make sure that every product that gets to your end customer is compliant. All right, so here are some crucial resources to consider when you're managing product safety information. So first, you need to be able to track products and whether they're compliant or not. So you need to be able to flag products so that you know if they're Prop 65 compliant or BPA free, or if they're children's product, or whatever other safety regulations you want associated with your products. You also need to be able to have, or you also need to have a product configuration process that's going to allow you to ask the right questions, like, is the product intended for a child? Or is the item being decorated? Or even, is the product being shipped to California? So all those things could, determine whether or not there are, safety regulations that you need to make sure you're compliant with. You also need process controls in place, because you need to make sure that you're fulfilling and shipping products that are compliant. You don't want something going out the door before you know it's compliant or not. So you could have, something in place like a QA process where you would check your products before they ship. And all the while, you need to be able to manage documents associated with the compliance of products. All right, so here's the good news. And for some of you who didn't know, current Compass customers or Compass users do have the tools to track safety regulations associated with a product. And those tools can be used to help ensure that products being produced or sold are safe and products are age appropriate. All right, so let's talk about the tools. properties in Compass can be assigned to products, and those properties or those attributes can be used to track the safety regulations associated with a product. And once those properties are assigned to a product, you could use or you could leverage the product finder within the system to search for products using the properties as criteria. And if that product is added to a sales order, you can even view the product detail from the sales order to see any additional properties that are assigned to the product. The system can also be told to automatically assign those properties, so instead of having to manage the assignment of the properties or those attributes to every product, you can just assign the properties at the subcategory level. So in the system, you can categorize and subcategorize products, so at the subcategory level, you could assign those properties, so anytime you add a product then to the system within that subcategory, it will automatically assign those properties. And those properties can even be displayed on a website. So if you have a company store and you want to display those things to your customers, you can show those properties right on the product detail page. So in addition to properties, surveys can be created in Compass that can be used to ask a series of qualifying questions about products and or decorations on a sales order. And those qualifying survey questions can also be used to collect product safety information about a product or whether the product is safe to the end customer. So it can not only be used to ask the right questions, but you can also tell the system when to ask those survey questions by assigning the surveys. Just like with properties, you can assign surveys at the subcategory level. So now your users don't have to worry about when to ask those questions, when to ask the right questions. The system already knows when to ask because you told it when to ask. So when we're talking about surveys, surveys can also be used, or they can be used to trigger what's called workflow. And workflow could be used to follow up on items on a sales order. In fact, those orders can even be placed on a fulfillment hold, a shipping hold, until the workflow is completed. And placing those holds, that's going to prevent orders from being fulfilled and shipped before confirming that items on the order are compliant with product safety regulations, or, again, verifying that those items are age appropriate. So with workflow, you can even attach files and documents to the workflow. Those files and documents could be safety compliances, safety certificates, those sorts of things, and you can attach those files and documents to the workflow. All right. So now I'd like to show you those tools in action. So if you bear with me a second, I'm just going to switch my screen over to Compass, and we'll take a look at those a little bit closer. All right, my apologies, it took a second longer to switch my screen. So in Compass, as I mentioned, you have the ability to create what's called properties, and that allows you to track those attributes, and more specifically, you can use it to track those product safety requirements or those product safety regulations. So if you have items that are compliant, you can create these properties to track those things. So here's an example on the screen of a property that I've created. I've called a BPA free. I've actually classified it as a property that will be used to track product safety requirements. So it's just an informational classification. And then in the property detail, you also have the ability to define what type of objects in the system you want to assign it to. So specifically with this property, we're going to be assigning it to products. And then down at the bottom there, you can see, or towards the bottom there, you can see the data type. So actually for this particular property, we're going to just say either yes or no, whether or not, like when I assign it to a product, I'm just going to say yes or no, or select the value of yes or no to define whether or not that product is in fact BPA free. So the great thing about properties is that they are user definable, so you can create as many as you need within the system, and you can assign them to whatever products you want. So just to take that a step further, specifically with properties, you can assign the property. So instead of assigning them on a product by product basis, you can assign the properties at the subcategory level. So if I go into my mugs subcategory, for example, and jump over to the properties tab, you can see that I have 3 properties assigned on that tab. Now they have default values of no, but when I create products in that subcategory, I'll be able to go to the properties tab of the product detail and change the values. So if they are compliant, I can change the value to yes if I want. So like for example, I could change it to yes, or whether it's Prop 65 compliant. So along with properties can be defaulted in the subcategory detail. Also, surveys can be defaulted in the subcategory detail as well. So if I add a product to an order that's within this subcategory, it's going to trigger the survey. And again, that survey is going to allow me to ask, well, the survey is going to ask the right questions so I can give all the correct answers and so on. So that survey then can trigger a workflow. I can place orders on hold. So if I jump over to customer service, I have this order. So I created the sales order. I can add a product to it. As a matter of fact, when I add the product, I can actually bring up the product finder. So that'll allow me to search any of the predefined products that I have in the system. So I can search by category, subcategory. I could search by SKU, by location. So you can see that I'm already actually filtering by category. I'm sorry, by drinkware, which is the category. So I have drinkware selected, and then I could even jump over to the Advanced tab and select a property that I can use as search criteria as well. So then I could do a search for anything that's, say, BPA free within my drinkware category. So when I click search, it's going to show me all those things that I have defined in the system that are BPA free. So I can add this ceramic mug, for example. I can add that to the order. When I click OK, I'll update the quantity. So then when I add it to the order, it actually triggers this survey. So you can see the survey detail came up. I'm going to be asked a series of questions. In this case, the first question there, is the item product safety compliant? I could say yes or no. Yes, it is compliant. Whether or not the product is being decorated. So I'm going to say yes here. And in fact, when you create surveys, you can also have questions that are dependent. So depending on how you answer questions, additional questions could actually then be displayed and be answered. So this question came up. This is just asking whether or not I verify that the decoration is product safety compliant. Yes. And then lastly, whether or not this product is a children's product. So if I say yes, when I mark that survey complete, based on how I answered that last question there, it actually built a workflow. And you'll see in the order status that it even placed the order on a fulfillment hold and a shipping hold. So in the workflow manager, if I take a look at that, you can see that it actually built 2 processes there. One where I can verify the product safety as well as the decoration safety. So I can go through, here's some activities here that I need to complete. First one, verify that the product is age appropriate. So I can go in there, I can start that up. As a matter of fact, within that activity, I can even attach files. So if I did the verification and I want to attach the certificate of compliance, I could go right in here and I can attach that file. So I'll start it up, I'll complete it. I would hope that they would take a little bit longer to do in reality. I'm just showing you these, you know, for the sake of time. But anyways, I'll start this one up, I'll mark this one complete, and then do the same for the decoration safety verification as well. So I verify that the decoration's age appropriate. So what's great about surveys and workflow is that they're all user definable. So you can create surveys based on what your needs are, as well as workflow. So if you're following a particular process now, you could use that process and create a workflow based off of that. All right, so now that my workflow is completed, if I close out of the workflow manager, you'll notice that the fulfillment and shipping holds have now been released from the order, so just by completing the workflow. All right, so I'm going to switch my screen back, so just bear with me a moment. All right, so we talked about the tools. So what we looked at properties. So we started off with properties, talking about properties, those attributes that you can create, that you can assign to products. You can even assign them at the subcategory level, so that when you add products, it'll assign them for you. So then from the properties, we could do a search. You know, in the product finder, we could find products based on different criteria, different properties, add those to the order. When we added those to the order, it triggered a survey. I took the survey, I put in the answers, and then that survey, then based on the answers, even built a workflow. And that workflow allowed me to then place the order on hold, fulfillment hold, shipping hold. And then once I finished that workflow, then those holds were released. So product safety is important because non-compliance can be catastrophic. But as I mentioned, you have those tools. Those tools are available to you to better track product safety regulations, to better manage the product safety information. And you could use surveys and workflow to ensure that those products are safe. And even with, as I said, with workflow, you can place orders on hold. All right, so what if something changes? So you can continue to use those tools in the system as regulations change. So if something changes, or if maybe a new product regulation needs to be tracked, you can create those in the system as well. So you can create new properties. You could even update existing surveys and workflow. You can update those things, you know, again, based on changes to the regulations and so on. Maybe you need to track some additional information, or maybe you need to ask more questions, or whatever the case may be. So you already know that the combination of tools that are used to manage product safety information is actually very powerful. But imagine the possibilities of information that you can track, because each of those tools are powerful on their own. So you could use properties to track additional product information like country of manufacture or packing requirements. You could even use it to define shipping requirements. So you could use properties that way. You could use surveys to collect product requirement information like decoration requirements or decoration instructions, you know, whether or not the shirt's going to be decorated on the right sleeve or the left sleeve. You could use workflow to manage an order from start to finish. It could be, you know, maybe a quality assurance process that you want to put in place, where you place holds on the orders so that, you know, they're checked before they're shipped. So again, verifying, you know, the decorating that was done, or, you know, verifying that the product is okay to ship. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Doug.
Thank you very much, Will. Essent is committed to using technology to improve product safety information management so that product sales are safer. Essent solutions provide all the capabilities discussed today, and we'll be happy to answer questions specific to you and your company. All you need to do is schedule a free demonstration at essent.com/safety. There you'll be able to review some of the highlights of the product safety information management tools that we discussed today, and you can use that page also to get in touch with an Essent representative. Again, that's essent.com/safety to take your next steps. And thanks again to everyone for attending today's webinar. Stay safe.